Have you noticed that even when you finally sit down to rest, your mind doesn't feel calm? The noise stops, but the restlessness stays. You scroll without enjoying it. You watch without remembering it. And somehow, you still feel tired. This is not because you are weak, lazy, or undisciplined. It is because your mind has been pulled in too many directions for too long. Every notification, every video, every sound has trained your brain to stay alert, restless, and hungry for more. So when silence appears, it feels uncomfortable instead of peaceful. This video is not about quitting technology or escaping the world. It is about understanding what constant stimulation is quietly doing to your mind, your emotions, and your sense of control. Because the truth is simple and uncomfortable. If you do not protect your attention, something else will take it. And once you understand this, you can finally begin to take your mind back. Your brain learns to fear stillness. At first, constant stimulation feels harmless. A quick look at your phone, a video playing in the background, music filling every quiet moment. It feels small, it feels normal, it feels like nothing important. But slowly, without you noticing, your relationship with silence begins to change. Silence stops feeling calm. It stops feeling safe. It starts feeling heavy and uncomfortable. Not boring, uncomfortable. When everything goes quiet, your body reacts before your mind does. Your chest tightens slightly. Your thoughts begin to race. You feel a strange urge to do something, anything just to fill the space. And you don't even ask why. You reach for your phone. You turn something on. You create noise. Not because silence is harmful, but because your brain is no longer used to peace. Your nervous system adapts to whatever you repeat. When noise and movement become constant, stillness starts to feel unfamiliar. And unfamiliar things feel dangerous to the body, even when they're not. So your mind sends a false signal. It whispers, something is wrong, even though nothing is. That is why stillness begins to feel like anxiety. That is why quiet moments feel restless. That is why doing nothing feels uncomfortable. Your brain has learned to associate calm with absence, not safety. And the moment nothing happens, no message, no sound, no screen, your hand moves automatically. You don't decide to reach for stimulation. Your body does it for you, because it believes silence means threat. But here is the gentle truth most people never hear. Nothing bad is happening in silence. There is no danger in calm. There is no problem in stillness. There is nothing missing. Your mind has simply forgotten how to be there. When you stop escaping quiet moments, even for a few seconds, something shifts. At first, it feels uncomfortable, but then your breathing slows, your shoulders drop, your thoughts begin to soften. Your body relearns something ancient and important. That calm is safe, that stillness is not an enemy, that you do not need constant noise to survive. Silence slowly becomes gentle again, not empty, not scary, but grounding, holding, restful. And in that quiet space, your mind starts to feel like your own again. This is where clarity begins. This is where strength grows. This is where control quietly returns. Not through force, not through effort, but through peace. Emotional numbing makes you fragile. When stimulation becomes your first response to discomfort, something subtle but serious begins to happen inside you. At first, it feels like relief. A distraction helps you forget stress for a moment. A video pulls your attention away from sadness. Noise fills the space where difficult feelings try to appear. It feels like you are coping, like you are managing life better. But what is really happening is avoidance, and avoidance always comes with a cost. Emotions are not problems to solve. They are signals meant to move through you. When they are constantly interrupted, they do not disappear. They stay inside, quietly building pressure. Stress that was never felt properly remains in the body. Sadness that was never allowed to pass settles deeper. Frustration that was never released turns into tension. Over time, this creates emotional weight that you are carrying without realizing it. This is why small things start to feel heavy. A minor delay feels overwhelming. A simple comment feels personal. A normal problem feels like too much. From the outside, it can look like weakness, but it is not weakness at all. It is emotional overload caused by too much avoidance. When feelings are never processed, even small challenges can push you past your limit. Constant stimulation teaches your mind that discomfort must be escaped immediately. So instead of learning how to sit with emotions and let them pass, your nervous system learns panic. It becomes sensitive. It reacts faster. It loses patience. This is how emotional fragility is formed, not because you feel too much, but because you have not been allowed to feel properly. The truth is that emotions lose their power when they are allowed to be felt fully. When you let yourself experience stress without distraction, it naturally rises and falls. When you allow sadness to be present, it slowly softens. When frustration is not pushed away, it releases itself. The body knows how to regulate emotions, but only when it is not constantly interrupted. As you begin to stay present with your feelings, even when they are uncomfortable, something important changes. You become calmer in situations that used to overwhelm you. Your reactions slow down. You stop feeling emotionally surprised by life. Strength quietly grows, not because life becomes easier, but because you become more stable inside it. This is how emotional resilience is built, not by escaping feelings, not by numbing them, but by allowing them to pass through you naturally. Over time, you realize that emotions were never the enemy. The real danger was never feeling them at all. And when stimulation no longer controls your emotional life, you stop feeling fragile. You start feeling grounded, steady, and able to handle whatever appears without falling apart. Dopamine without effort destroys discipline. Your brain was never designed to feel rewarded all the time. It was designed to feel rewarded after effort. When you work toward something, struggle a little, and make progress, your brain releases a feeling of satisfaction. That feeling is what pushes you forward. It is what makes discipline possible and effort feel meaningful. Constant stimulation breaks this natural system. When entertainment, pleasure, and excitement are always available, your brain starts receiving reward without having to earn it. You get the good feeling first, before any work is done. Over time, your brain becomes used to this pattern, and effort begins to feel unnecessary and heavy. This is why simple tasks start to feel exhausting. Work feels boring. Goals feel far away. Even things you once cared about begin to feel dull. It is not because you lost ambition or discipline. It is because your brain has already been flooded with reward, so it sees no reason to push itself. When reward comes too easily, struggle starts to feel pointless. Your mind quietly asks, "Why try if I already feel something?" And without realizing it, discipline slowly disappears. You start putting things off. You wait for motivation that never arrives. You feel stuck, even though nothing is truly stopping you. The danger of this is subtle because it feels comfortable at first. You feel entertained, you feel busy, you feel occupied. But beneath that comfort, your ability to work through difficulty weakens. The muscle of discipline slowly shrinks, not from lack of desire, but from lack of need. When stimulation is reduced and reward is delayed, the mind begins to change again. Effort slowly feels meaningful. Small wins start to matter. Progress becomes satisfying in a quiet, steady way. You no longer need constant excitement to move forward. Discipline is not built by force. It is built by restoring the natural order between effort and reward. When you allow yourself to earn satisfaction instead of consuming it freely, your mind relearns how to push through resistance. Over time, work stops feeling unbearable. Focus becomes easier. Motivation begins to return, not as a sudden burst, but as a steady inner drive. You realize that discipline was never lost. It was simply drowned out by too much easy reward. And when reward follows effort again, self-control no longer feels like punishment. It feels natural. Constant input erases your inner authority. When your mind is constantly taking in information, something important begins to fade. At first, you may not notice it because you still think, still react, and still have opinions. But slowly, your confidence in your own judgment weakens. You start looking outside yourself before you decide. You check what others think. You wait for confirmation. You hesitate, even when you already know the answer. This happens because constant input trains your brain to follow instead of lead. When opinions, advice, and reactions are always flowing into your mind, your own voice has no space to speak clearly. You become used to being told what is important, what to feel, and how to think. Over time, this creates doubt, not because you lack intelligence, but because your mind has stopped practicing independence. You may notice that decisions take longer than they used to. Simple choices feel heavier. You second-guess yourself. You feel unsure even after deciding. This is not because life became more complex. It is because your inner authority has been drowned out by too much external noise. Constant stimulation also creates comparison. When you are always exposed to other people's opinions, lives, and choices, you begin to measure yourself against them. This weakens trust in your own path. You start adjusting yourself to fit what you see, instead of acting from what you know is right for you. When input is reduced, something important returns. Your thoughts become clearer. Your preferences feel stronger. You begin to notice that you actually do know what you want, what feels right, and what does not. Decisions become calmer because they come from within, not from pressure or imitation. As your mind gets quieter, confidence grows naturally. You stop needing permission to think differently. You stop waiting for approval. You feel grounded in your choices, even when others disagree. This is not arrogance. It is inner stability. Your authority was never lost. It was simply buried under too much noise. When the noise fades, your voice becomes clear again, and you remember that your mind was always meant to lead your life, not follow it. Fragmented attention collapses time. When your attention is constantly broken into pieces, time begins to lose its shape. At first, you may not notice it. Days still pass. Tasks still get done. Life appears to move forward. But slowly, something feels off. Time starts to move too fast, yet nothing meaningful seems to stay with you. This happens because your sense of time is created by where your attention rests. When attention jumps from one thing to another, your mind never fully arrives anywhere. Moments pass without being fully experienced, and when moments are not deeply experienced, they are not deeply remembered. This is why days blur together. You reach the end of the week and wonder where it went. You look back on months and feel like they disappeared. It is not because life is short. It is because your attention was never fully present long enough to leave a memory. Fragmented attention makes life feel thin. You may be busy all day, yet feel like you did nothing that truly mattered. Conversations feel rushed. Activities feel unfinished. Even when they are completed, your mind moves on before the moment has time to settle. When attention is allowed to stay in one place, time slows naturally. Simple moments feel fuller. Work feels more grounded. Even ordinary tasks carry more weight. This is not because life changed, but because your mind stayed long enough to experience it. As attention becomes steadier, memories deepen. Days begin to feel longer in a good way. You start to remember how moments felt, not just what happened. Life stops rushing past you and starts unfolding in front of you. Time was never speeding up. It was slipping through the gaps in your attention. When those gaps close, time returns, and life begins to feel real again. A full mind cannot produce original thought. When your mind is always filled with information, there is no space left for anything new to appear. From the moment you wake up, your thoughts are already occupied by voices, images, opinions, and ideas that came from somewhere else. By the time you try to think on your own, your mind is already crowded. A full mind does not create. It repeats, it reacts, it rearranges what it has already seen. This is why many people feel like they have thoughts, but none of them truly feel like their own. They speak in borrowed ideas, they think in familiar patterns. They struggle to say something original, not because they lack intelligence, but because their mind never has room to breathe. Original thought is quiet by nature. It does not shout, it does not rush. It appears slowly, often when the mind is empty and relaxed. That is why your best ideas come when you are walking, resting, or doing something simple without distraction. In those moments, your mind is finally not being filled, so it begins to form something new. When input never stops, your mind stays in consumption mode. It is always receiving, comparing, and reacting. There is no pause long enough for deeper understanding or insight to form. Over time, this makes you feel mentally dull, even though you are consuming more information than ever before. When you allow your mind to be empty for a while, something changes. Thoughts slow down, mental noise fades, ideas begin to connect in new ways. You start to notice patterns, insights, and perspectives that were invisible before. This is not effort, it is space doing its work. Original thinking does not come from trying harder. It comes from allowing less. When your mind is no longer crowded, it naturally begins to create, reflect, and understand at a deeper level. What appears feels clearer, more personal, and more true to who you are. Your mind was never meant to be constantly filled. It was meant to absorb, then rest, then create. When you give it that space again, originality returns quietly, without force, exactly when you stop trying to chase it. Stimulation turns you into a reactive person. When stimulation is constant, your life slowly shifts from being something you choose into something you react to. You may not notice it happening, because everything still feels busy and active, but beneath the surface, control begins to slip away. Every sound pulls your attention. Every message demands a response. Every new piece of content triggers a feeling. Your mind is always responding to what appears next, instead of deciding what truly matters. Over time, this trains your brain to stay alert, restless, and ready to react at all times. When you live in this reactive state, your emotions start leading you instead of following you. A comment can change your mood. A headline can disturb your peace. A notification can interrupt your focus instantly. You are not choosing these reactions. They happen automatically, because your nervous system has been trained to respond without pause. This is how intention disappears. You wake up with plans, but the day pulls you in different directions. You start something, then get interrupted. You move from one thing to another without fully choosing any of it. At the end of the day, you feel tired, yet unsure of what you actually decided for yourself. A reactive life feels urgent but empty. You are always responding, always adjusting, always catching up. There is little space to reflect, to choose, or to act calmly. Your sense of direction becomes weak, because direction requires stillness before movement. When stimulation is reduced, the space between trigger and response begins to grow. That small pause is powerful. In that pause, you start noticing your reactions instead of being controlled by them. You regain the ability to choose how you respond, or whether to respond at all. As this space grows, intention returns. You begin to act with purpose again. Your emotions settle. Your focus strengthens. You stop being pushed around by whatever appears next. Life starts to feel calmer, not because it is easier, but because you are no longer reacting to everything. This is how control comes back, not by fighting stimulation, but by stepping out of constant reaction and returning to conscious choice. Overstimulation disconnects you from your body. When stimulation fills most of your day, your attention lives almost entirely in your head. Your thoughts are always moving, reacting, planning, or consuming something new. Meanwhile, your body is quietly left behind. You continue to move, work, and live, but you are no longer fully aware of how your body feels in each moment. This disconnection happens slowly. You stop noticing your breathing. You ignore tension in your shoulders. You push past tiredness without listening. Over time, your body becomes something you carry instead of something you live inside. This is why restlessness and anxiety often appear without a clear reason. Your body is designed to stay in the present moment. It communicates through sensation, breath, and movement. When your attention is constantly pulled outward by stimulation, those signals are missed. The body keeps sending messages, but the mind is too busy to listen. This creates a sense of unease, as if something is wrong, even when nothing obvious is happening. When the mind and body are out of sync, simple things start to feel uncomfortable. Sitting still feels difficult. Relaxing feels strange. Even rest can feel restless. This is not because the body is broken, but because it has been ignored for too long. As stimulation is reduced, attention slowly returns to the body. Breathing becomes noticeable again. Movements feel more intentional. Tension begins to release without effort. You start to feel grounded, as if you are finally where you are, instead of somewhere else. This reconnection brings calm in a natural way. The nervous system settles. Thoughts slow down. Anxiety loses its grip, not because you fought it, but because your body feels safe again. When you are present in your body, life feels more real. You experience moments instead of rushing through them. You feel stable, rooted, and balanced. This is not something you force. It happens when stimulation quiets down and your attention comes back home to where it was always meant to be. Silence reveals what stimulation hides. Silence is not empty, even though it feels that way at first. It only feels empty because stimulation has been filling every space for so long. When the noise stops, when the screen turns off, when nothing is playing in the background, your mind suddenly becomes aware of itself, and that moment can feel uncomfortable, even unsettling. This is because silence removes distractions, and distractions are what keep certain thoughts and feelings hidden. When stimulation is constant, it acts like a cover. It keeps worries quiet. It pushes unanswered questions away. It numbs emotions that were never fully faced. Everything feels lighter on the surface, but nothing is truly resolved underneath. When silence appears, all of that has room to rise. Thoughts you avoided begin to surface. Feelings you postponed ask for attention. You may suddenly feel sadness, regret, fear, or confusion without knowing exactly why. This is not because silence is causing these feelings. It is because silence is revealing what was already there. This is why many people rush to escape quiet moments. They turn on music, they check their phone, they distract themselves again. Not because silence is dangerous, but because it feels honest. It shows you parts of yourself that stimulation helped you ignore. But here is the truth that changes everything. What is revealed in silence is not there to harm you. It is there to be released. Thoughts lose their power when they are seen clearly. Emotions soften when they are allowed to be felt. Questions begin to settle when they are finally faced. When you stay with silence instead of escaping it, something gentle happens. The mind stops running. The body relaxes. What first felt heavy slowly becomes lighter. What felt overwhelming becomes clearer. Silence stops feeling like pressure and starts feeling like space. In that space, you begin to understand yourself better. You notice what truly matters to you. You recognize what you have been carrying unnecessarily. You feel more honest, more grounded, more real. Silence does not take anything from you. It gives you clarity. It gives you truth. And when you allow it to stay, even for a little while, it becomes a place of healing rather than something to fear. This is why silence is powerful, not because it is empty, but because it shows you what stimulation kept hidden and gives you the chance to finally let it go. You don't need more self-control, you need fewer triggers. Most people believe they lack self-control. They think the problem is discipline, willpower, or motivation. So they push themselves harder, judge themselves more, and feel frustrated when they fail again. But in most cases, the problem is not the person. It is the environment they are living in. When triggers are everywhere, self-control becomes almost impossible. Notifications, endless content, constant noise, and easy distractions surround you all day. Your mind is asked to resist temptation again and again without rest. Over time, even strong willpower gets tired. This is not weakness. It is exhaustion. Self-control was never meant to be used constantly. It is a limited resource. When your environment keeps pulling at your attention, your mind stays in a defensive state. You are always resisting, always deciding, always fighting urges. That constant effort drains mental energy and makes you feel tired, even when you have done nothing physical. This is why many people feel disciplined in the morning but lose control later in the day. It is not because they suddenly changed. It is because their mental strength was slowly worn down by too many triggers. Every small decision, every temptation, every distraction took a piece of that strength. When triggers are reduced, something surprising happens. Self-control feels lighter. Focus comes more easily. You do not feel like you are fighting yourself all the time. The mind relaxes because it is no longer under constant pressure. Control becomes natural when the environment supports it. When distractions are limited, good choices require less effort. You do not need to force yourself as much because there is less to resist. Life feels calmer, not because you became stronger overnight, but because the battlefield became quieter. This is the shift most people never make. They try to fix themselves instead of fixing what surrounds them. But when you protect your mind from constant triggers, self-control stops feeling like a struggle. It becomes a quiet, steady presence. True control is not about pushing harder. It is about creating conditions where control no longer has to fight. You were never meant to live with your mind constantly pulled in every direction. You were not designed to be endlessly distracted, emotionally drained, or mentally exhausted by noise that never stops. Deep inside, your mind knows this. That is why you feel tired even when you rest, and restless even when nothing is wrong. When stimulation is reduced, something gentle begins to happen. Your thoughts slow down, your emotions settle, your attention comes back home. Life no longer feels rushed or scattered. Moments start to feel real again. You feel present, steady, and clear in a way that is hard to explain but easy to recognize. Taking back your mind does not mean rejecting the world or living without pleasure. It means choosing where your attention goes instead of letting it be taken. It means giving your mind the space it needs to breathe, to think, and to feel without being constantly interrupted. As you step away from endless stimulation, you may notice a quiet strength returning. Focus becomes easier, emotions feel more balanced, decisions feel calmer and more confident. You begin to trust yourself again, not because life became simpler, but because your mind is no longer overwhelmed. This is not about perfection. It is about awareness. It is about noticing when noise is stealing your peace and gently choosing silence instead. Even small moments of stillness can change how you experience your entire day. Your mind is powerful, but only when it is protected. When you take back control of your attention, you take back control of your life. And in that quiet space you create, you will find clarity, strength, and a sense of calm that no amount of stimulation could ever give you. Remember this always: control your mind, or it will be controlled for you.